Hi, I'm Dwania Peele, and welcome to Origin Story. This is the space where we go beyond the bios and the highlight reels to uncover the real journeys of women entrepreneurs. The moments when that idea first sparked and the risks that followed. And we're going to talk about the pivots that tested them and the breakthroughs that changed everything. See, every business you see today started with a decision. It was a moment where someone chose to believe in their vision, believe in it enough to actually begin. So, on this series, I sit down with incredible women who are building businesses, creating impact, and redefining success on their own terms because every empire starts with an origin story. I would like to introduce our guest today, Sola Oluwole. Sola, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dwania. Such a pleasure to be here.
So before we dive in and learn all about Shola, I want to remind everyone that I want you to like this video because it's a free and easy way to support the channel. And you want to share the video because we're not gatekeepers. We want to spread Shola's story. So let's dive right in. Shola, first question.
Yes.
Take us back. Where did your idea for 3G action start?
Oh my. Okay, so I'm going to take you back and a little bit further back and a little bit further back.
All right, we're going all the way back.
All the way to the back. All the way to the back when I was in university. Okay, so I studied economics, and two modules that I took were development economics one and two. And that's where I started getting exposed to marginalization and systems and how financial systems can have impact on communities and people and all that, right? So it piqued my interest. And when I was done with school, I started to work in a consulting firm where I actually helped small businesses in their financial management and things like that. Then I did a master's. I went on to do a master's in international development, focusing on development finance.
Mm.
And that was when I was really exposed to global systems of how financial institutions, especially grassroots and community financial institutions, help and transform not just individual lives, but communities. So we talk about microfinance institutions like the Grameen Bank and how they were invested in women entrepreneurs, and how giving funds to women entrepreneurs went on to not just, like I said, affect them individually, but affect their families, and then going on to affect their community and having great impact, that ripple effect. So when I was done with my master's, of course, I didn't have any other desire but to work in an international development field or development finance and do all that. So my journey did take me a little bit to the Middle East for like 7 years, where I was able to, work in finance, Ghana, a bit more experience. And then when I moved to Canada and I started to work with BDC, was when I think that, it fully blossomed, right? And there I got to see how capital is being used, or those that have access to it, those that don't have access to it, why they don't have access to it. And it really just solidified that passion that was kindled when I was in university, to help people that otherwise wouldn't have access to resources to gain access to them. Right. And so that's eventually, I started to express that desire and work in that field in BDC, especially even in my latest role as the regional manager for inclusive entrepreneurship, where I was in charge of giving access to women, Black and Indigenous entrepreneurs, and even other entrepreneurs that were underrepresented. I still saw, that gap where they just did not have the capital that they needed to run their businesses, right? And after a while, I took a leap of faith to say, you know what? I'm going to fill that gap of preparing businesses to be able to have access to the funding that they require. Because yes, the funders want to get the money out there, but not many people have the patience to walk you through the whole journey for you to get there, right? So that is where I come in, walking them through the journey such that they become fundable, they become confident to be able to approach the funders and get the money that they need to help their businesses. And again, it's not just about them, it's about, their families, it's about the impact on the community, on the economy, and, the ripple effect. So I
Huh.
think I went a little bit back,
You went all the way back,
all the way back
all the way back.
on the origin story. Yes, so that's where
So
it
you
all
talked
started.
about that ripple effect. You talked about women.
Yes.
Why is it so important for us to focus on women as women run businesses as well?
I don't know if I'm quoting this statement right, but they say when you educate a person or an individual, you educate that individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate a community. This is saying like that. So
Yeah.
women, we are nurturers by nature. So we don't hold things to ourselves. When we get a benefit, we want to share.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, when a woman is doing well, the ripple effect, you see, we can even see it from all the women events happening everywhere, all the retreats, everybody is passionate about helping the other woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe strongly that when a woman has access to capital to run her business effectively, she's not only changing her own life, she's going to hire more women like herself, or even, men too, anybody, that would then have a ripple effect in their business. The other flip side is that um, in my experience, I saw that women are not as confident as their male counterpart who run businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They need a bit of encouragement, a bit of coaching to be able to actually ask for the funding that they need for their businesses. And when they eventually get the funding, they also really want to pay it back. Like, I don't want to owe anybody and whatnot. So it's really important to expose women to the knowledge and also to the network required to be able to have access to capital to run their businesses.
Yeah, that is true because I can say, even for myself and a lot of the women that I encounter, it is hard to
Yeah,
ask for the funds. And when you ask for it, the first thing you're thinking of is, oh my gosh, how do I pay it off? When you're looking at men, they're thinking, how do I hold on to this the longest and make the most out of it?
100%. Give me what you can give, like the biggest amount you can give me for the longest time I can have it. That's how they operate.
Yeah. Now, if we can only put all that together and if everyone can see the impact that women can have, what would be your ideal outlook when you think of the potential in women and women run businesses? Like, what does it look like? That golden, you put on your rose glasses, what does it look like?
It will look like women running businesses that are scalable, right? And what do I mean by that? Businesses that have systems, that work. And the woman does not have to carry everything on her shoulder, right? So we are talking about from operational systems to financial systems to technological systems, because especially when women start their businesses, they do all that. And most business owners, you have to wear many hats. But for me, an ideal, well-oiled, woman-owned business would look like one that actually has systems that doesn't just rely on her, but she can delegate, she can take a break, she can scale, she can multiply, she can sell the business when the time comes, right? That is what like a successful business would look. Of course, it has to be profitable. We're not
Yeah.
just doing business for the fun of doing business. That's an expensive hobby. But the business has to be profitable, yes, self-sustaining, yes, but on top of that, actually, to be able to reach that point, you need to have the basic systems. So systems and profitability. I think that's how I'll summarize it.
Okay. So now you're in the position where you're independently dealing with women who want to start, but also women who already have their companies, but they're trying to become that well oiled machine.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the common mistakes that people are making when they're trying to get these funds?
Mm. I think a lot of people think capital is the solution to their problems, right? Um, yes, when you get funding at the right time and you have the right foundation for your business, it can actually help you to grow. But if your house is not in order, like I said, talking about systems, if things are out of place, you don't have your financial
Mhm,
statements, you don't keep proper records,
mhm,
it's not going to be helpful to you because it will just be like you're getting the money and then you're pouring it into the basket. It's going to drain away. So, number one problem or challenge, or what I see is not having, the right financial systems, not having your book in order. That's one mistake I see people making. Another one is a lot of, especially when we're talking about lenders, a lot of them are cash flow lenders,
mhm,
right? So your business needs to be making some money and be able to repay the loan that you are looking to get, right? So if the business is already in trouble, the funding may not actually help. You just need to fix something, your cash flow first of all, and then you'd be able to have enough funding to be able to um, repay your loan. Another thing I have seen a lot is you as a business owner, you have a lot to do in whether you're going to access the funding you need for your business or not. We talk about the credit score, the credit history, the expertise, the team surrounding the business owner. So if you're going to, or you're running a business and you don't have the expertise in that business, and you don't have a team or a professional that you can lean on, nobody would want to give you money because, I mean, you won't be able to execute on the nice vision that you have painted. So I would say having the proper systems, keeping your books, right? Secondly would be cash flow in the business, being able to repay the loan. And then third would be you as the business owner. What is your stance,
mhm.
in terms of your credit score, credit history, and your capability, your capacity to deliver on the vision of the business.
Wow. Well, Shola just dropped a lot of gems. I hope you received them. Now I want to get to know a little bit about you and your business process because you went from something very secure to now branching out on your own. With doing that, how how did you really feel doing that transition? How are you feeling right now about that transition?
Okay, so I was terrified, is what is how I felt. It had been something that had been on my mind for a while. My partner and I started the business in 2020, right? So it had been going on the side. Um, but I towards like the beginning or end of, I would say towards the end of 2024 was when I started feeling like maybe it was time to dive in, and but I was scared of letting go of the regular paycheck, every 2 weeks, I knew that my money was coming in, and that was a little bit terrifying. So it took me a while to actually get to the point where I was comfortable to say, okay, all right, it's time to take this move. But I knew it was the right decision and it was the right time. So I took the leap. Like I said, it wasn't something that I arrived at overnight, and I had systems, around me. I had checked. Can I sustain myself, financially, when I when I take this step? Do I have the support, not just for the business, but just my community? Do I have the support to be able to take this leap to have the network that I can, call upon to, send me business, make introductions for me and do all that, to continue to let the business run. Um, do I have a sounding board? Like somebody that I can always, hey, I'm thinking of this. What do you think? So I had to ensure that I had that, almost like a support system around me
Mhm.
before taking the leap. It wasn't a leap that I took blindly. And I mean, I had people questioning my my decisions, but I knew my decision rather, but I knew that it was the right one for me at the time. And so far, no regrets, I have the freedom, the flexibility. I'm able to, go the extra mile, what I've always wanted to do. So it's been good so far, I'd say.
I'm glad you went through the list of all the things that you wanted to check off before making that leap, because a lot of times people are asking, at what point do I really dive all in to what was my side hustle? So there are a
Right.
lot of things that come into play. It's not just I believe in myself, so that's good enough. you know, you
You
can't
believe
pay
you'll be
your bills
100.
on belief.
Belief does not pay the bills.
Does not pay the bills. It's kind of like, people, if you know, you know. If you know what I'm about to say, you know. Singing does not pay the bills. Music does not pay the bills. If you know where that's from, make sure you drop it in the comments. Really good movie. um, yeah, so I'm happy that you really talked about that component and
Mhm.
talked about being terrified, because that is the reality. Because stepping out on a limb and doing it on your own is not easy. And that leads right back into why you're doing what you're doing, because you're an immigrant woman doing
Mhm.
things that you are trying to teach other women to do.
That's right. That's
And
right.
everything you've been through has brought you to the point where, you're in it, you're doing it, you believe in what you do, and you're able to push through and get it done. So now that you're here and you started, are there any misunderstandings that you might have other people who are looking at you going, oh my gosh, Shola stepped out on a limb and now she's doing her own thing? What don't they get about everything that you've done to get here? Do they think it's just overnight?
Oh, that would be the longest night ever. No, nothing happens overnight. Like I told you my story at the beginning, right? So it's been cooking for quite a while, right? No, it wasn't something that I just, arrived at overnight. Like I said, it's been something that, I've been thinking about and also I had been planning about. Um, it's something that also is very near and dear. Like you said, you mentioned that I'm an immigrant woman, Black woman, a mom, so I have all that at the back of my mind. So I had to be very careful with my decision making, but I also had to trust myself. Because I have made decisions in the past that turned out well. So I had to trust that this was a decision that I was making and I wasn't making recklessly, that was going to turn out well as well. Right. So what led on to this, like I said, is, when I moved to maybe the latter part of the decision making, when I moved to Canada a few years ago, about now 9 years ago, I was looking for a job. Before coming to Canada, I don't know if I've ever told you, I think I may have told you this part of the story before, that because of my passion for businesses and international development and development finance, I wanted to work with a development bank. So ever before coming to Canada, I researched if Canada had a development bank, and that's how come I got to know about BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada. And so I set my eyes on working with BDC, even though my journey initially took me to another bank. I worked with BMO for a bit, but I eventually came to BDC and I saw how BDC supports, business owners. And I was also able to gain a lot of skills and knowledge and network, while doing that. So much so I got to a point where I was comfortable that I could actually go out and do this on my own, right? So like I said, it's something that's built gradually over time, it wasn't something that, like I just decided to pivot. And, that
Yes, there
was the
was no
word
big
during the
pivot here.
pandemic. Yeah, sorry.
There was no big pivot here. Everything was in divine order.
Yes, yes, it was something that was building up gradually. When I was at BDC, initially I was working in a different team. Then I moved on to being an account manager, where I was really entrenched in the market. Like going to visit entrepreneurs, seeing the challenges they go through, the struggle, helping them to get the money they need to run their businesses. And then when I moved into the role as a regional manager, it even exposed me further,
Mhm.
into the challenges of indigenous communities, of women entrepreneurs, of the Black community, the lack of access to funds, the lack of network, the lack of education. Oh my God, the lack of knowledge. Oh my God, it just tugged at my heart. So, and all those things just kept fanning the fire that was kindled way back in university. So I just got to that point where I felt like I had both the passion and the skill, to execute on this business. So I took the leap.
And you had the vision and you had the plan to get there. You did
Correct.
everything because you knew exactly what you wanted to do.
Correct.
Yeah. So now BDC is behind you. You're in your new business. And we
Correct.
have this segment that I love called The First Yes. I want to ask you. So there was one moment that changed everything. The first person who believed enough to say yes. The first yes is a signature segment here in Origin Story where our guests revisit that first client, customer, investor, collaborator, or that first opportunity that validated their vision. It's about the breakthrough that shifts you from dreaming to doing and the courage it took to step into that moment. So, because sometimes one yes is all it takes to build, Shola, tell me about the first yes that you had.
So the first yes I had was actually I was away on vacation.
Oh.
I was away on vacation, and I got an email from a collaborator I had worked with before, while I was, still in my 9 to 5. And they reached out and said, we need somebody to help us to facilitate a session. And I haven't found anybody like you. Would you be willing to do it? And imagine hearing that. I was like, okay. Yes, please. So of course, I replied and I said, yes, tell me more. I'd love to come do it. And that first yes has opened many doors with our organization now, right? And it's helped me to move a little bit faster than I, even planned.
Mhm.
I thought I was going to move. So I'm so grateful for people that believe in me and people that are willing to not just believe silently, but also reach out and say, you know what, I'm gonna open this door for you, and I'm so grateful for it. It also is not to toot my own horn, but generally it's a testament to the fact that when you're given an opportunity, whatever you do, do it to your max, do the best you can. Because when I was working with her, when I had the opportunity to meet her when I was doing my 9 to 5, I never foresaw that, there would be a time where she would reach out to me as an independent, business
Mhm.
owner to come help. But I think maybe the level of excellence that she perceived that I work with or deliver my job was what encouraged her to vouch for me, to say, hey, you know what, I like to connect you with a team member and open this door for you. And yeah, the rest, as they say, is history.
History. I love the fact that she said, I don't know anyone like you. That's the part because that sets you've done all these things to set yourself apart from the rest. They might know plenty of people who can do it, but no one like you. That
That's a
part
good
hit
one.
home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No one like
yeah.
you. There is none like you.
And it actually, it reinforces the thought. So for a while, especially when I was in sales, I thought I needed to have a certain personality to
Hmm.
function effectively as a salesperson. Because, yeah, it might not come across now, but actually, I'm an introvert, you know. So I've always thought salespeople had to be extroverts, they had to be out there. So I doubted myself a lot, you know. Um, but when I leaned into my own uniqueness, I realized that I could do it in my own way, right? I realized that the fact that I don't have a lot of words, I'm a little bit reserved and all that, make people trust me, like just
Yeah.
because they don't think I'm just trying to sell them, right?
Hmm.
That I give them genuine advice, I come authentically, and I think that comes through, in what I do, and maybe that's one of the things she saw, and it's like, you know what, we want you to come do this for us.
And
So
it means also you're a
just
good listener.
yeah, yes. So I'm just saying this to encourage anybody out there. Don't look down on yourself. You have been made fit for purpose, right? Whatever your personality is, whatever the um, set of skills that you have, the experiences you've had, all those things are building up to something. Somebody asked me a question that if I were to redo things, what would I change? And I said, absolutely nothing.
Oh,
The highs, the lows, everything has brought me to this point,
it's
right?
true.
So embracing who we are, our true authentic self, and finding how to do things in our own unique way would open more doors for us than we could ever imagine.
Hmm. Wow. Well, Shola, we've had such a good conversation, but I still do have a couple of questions for you.
Please.
So, one, what advice would you give to women who are stuck at the beginning of their process, of their business journey?
Get help, you know. That's my fault. Get help. We don't have to figure it out alone. And there are people that have gone ahead of you. There are business advisors out there that you can reach out to, you know, and also get help one and get into a community of women entrepreneurs. Like I said, women, we move in groups. We like community and we like to help one another. So
Mhm.
if you just open up to somebody in such a community, you'll be surprised as to how far people are willing to go to support you. So get help, get into community.
That has been a common thread with all the interviews that we've had is that everyone says make sure you find a community that suits you. So
Yeah,
find that community if you haven't done so, because everyone says that's what works, people.
yeah,
That's what works.
for sure.
So,
Yeah.
our final signature question of Origin Story, I would like you to finish this sentence. My origin story taught me that.
I should believe in myself.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh my gosh. Shola, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Yes, this has been really good. Like, everyone got to know really, like, they went way, 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 way back with us. They got to know your story. They got some gems, some really good advice, and they got to know you a little bit more. So I thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Origin Story. I hope this conversation reminded you that every successful business begins with a decision. It's the
Mhm.
courage to start, the resilience to keep going, and the belief that your vision matters. So, if this episode resonated with you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a woman who is building something powerful of her own. And if you're a woman entrepreneur with a story to tell, I would love to hear from you. We will have the link in the description of this video so that we can, hear your story too. So until next time, keep building, keep believing, and remember, every empire starts with an origin story. Bye for now.